Welcome back to Art Conservation Talks, where we take a deep dive into the world of preserving our cultural heritage.
That's right. Today we're talking about those silent enemies, the forces that work against art, the agers of deterioration.
Like a detective story, right? We'll be uncovering clues and learning how to protect these precious objects.
And you might be surprised by how many dangers there are, even in places that seem safe.
So we'll be looking at the 10 primary agents, and maybe even an 11th, that affect how long artwork lasts.
Let's start with the most obvious one, light.
Light. It seems harmless, even essential, but is it really a threat to art?
It's not light itself, but the energy it carries, especially ultraviolet and infrared radiation.
So let a sunburn for paintings.
Exactly. Even low light can, over time, cause fading and make materials brittle, especially organic ones like textiles, paper, or certain pigments.
Like tapestries in museums or old scrolls. Those must be really vulnerable.
And the scary part is, you can't always see the damage right away.
It's like a time bomb, slowly damaging the art from the inside.
That's why museums are so careful about light levels. They use special filters and limit how long artwork is on display.
Now let's talk about environments, especially those that are too hot or too cold. That brings us to our next agent, incorrect temperature.
Both extremes can be a problem, but in different ways. Heat speeds up chemical reactions, so things deteriorate faster.
Like speeding up the aging process.
Exactly. High temperatures can soften things like wax, making them lose their shape. And of course, it dries out organic materials, which can lead to cracks.
So it's not just about avoiding extreme heat, but also keeping a stable temperature.
And that's where relative humidity comes in, our third agent.
Okay, let's break that down. What exactly is relative humidity and why does it matter for art?
Relative humidity, or RH, is the amount of moisture in the air, how much water vapor it holds. It matters because many materials, both organic and inorganic, react to the RH levels around them.
Too much moisture and you get mold, mildew, corrosion.
Right. And on the other hand, if the air is too dry, organic materials can shrink and crack.
Imagine a wooden sculpture drying out and splitting, or a canvas painting becoming brittle.
Fluctuations in RH are especially bad because they make materials expand and contract, putting stress on the artwork.
So museums must be very careful about monitoring both temperature and relative humidity.
They use climate control systems to keep those levels stable, and they carefully choose materials for display and storage.
So next up is pollutants, which seems pretty obvious. You don't want dirt building up on a
Yeah.
priceless painting.
Right, but pollutants come in many forms. They can be airborne, transferred by touch, or even be in the objects themselves.
We're not just talking about dust here.
Things like emissions from plastics or wood used in display cases or leftover pesticides from old treatments can be pollutants.
And I guess even a seemingly clean environment can have pollutants that harm artwork.
Exactly, so museums have to monitor air quality very carefully.
Okay, on to number 5. Pests. Not just the creepy crawlies, I'm guessing.
You got it. Pests in art conservation mean any organism that can damage artwork. Insects, rodents, birds, even things like mold and bacteria.
A whole ecosystem of tiny invaders.
And even a small infestation can become a big problem quickly. Insects can eat organic materials, rodents can gnaw on anything, and mold can spread fast.
So regular cleaning, pest control, and careful monitoring are key to keep them away.
Now let's talk about physical forces, our sixth agent.
This must cover a wide range, from accidents to natural disasters.
Yes, physical forces can damage art in many ways. Sudden events like drops or natural disasters can cause breaks, lost pieces, or weaken how things are put together.
But there's also damage that happens slowly, right?
Right. Long-term vibrations from a busy street or construction can weaken fragile pieces until they break down.
And don't forget about damage from handling the art too much.
Especially for things like textiles, paper, or objects with delicate surfaces. Every touch risks scratching, dirt, or even tears.
So museums have to find a balance between letting people see the art and protecting it from being handled too much.
Speaking of potential disasters, let's move on to fire, our seventh agent.
Fire is obviously catastrophic, destroying art in minutes.
The heat can melt, char, or completely burn up materials. Even if the fire doesn't reach an object, the smoke and soot can cause a lot of damage. And then there's water damage from putting out the fire.
Not a good combination for any artwork. Speaking of water, that brings us to our 8th agent.
It might seem strange, but while we use water in some conservation treatments, too much of it can be very damaging, especially if it happens suddenly, like a flood or a burst pipe.
So controlled exposure is key.
Exactly. Water can soak materials, making them very fragile, especially things like paper and
And
textiles.
then they're much more likely to tear, lose their shape, or even grow mold.
And water can carry contaminants like dirt, debris, salts, and minerals, which get left behind as the water dries, causing stains, discoloration, and even corrosion.
Double damage the water itself and then the residue.
That's why it's crucial to act quickly if an artwork gets wet. The faster you dry it and remove those contaminants, the less damage there will be.
Makes sense. Time is of the essence when it comes to water damage. Now, let's move to an agent that's a bit different. Theft, our ninth agent of deterioration.
This one stands out because it's a deliberate act by people, not just an environmental factor.
We're talking about planned robberies, opportunistic theft by visitors, staff stealing, and even vandalism.
All of those. It shows how important security is in museums and galleries. All those systems, alarms, controlled access, and careful inventory management, it all goes into preventing theft and protecting collections.
It's sad that we have to worry about protecting art from people as well as from natural damage.
It is, but it's a reality we can't ignore. Let's move on to our 10th and final primary agent, custodial neglect.
This one's often overlooked, but I imagine it could be just as damaging as the others.
It can. It's about not taking proper care of artwork or a collection. For example, storing art in a damp basement or an attic with big temperature swings.
Or using the wrong materials for storage, like acidic cardboard boxes or tape that leaves residue.
Exactly. And keeping bad records is also a form of neglect. If you don't have good records of an object's history, materials, and past treatments, it's much harder to take good care of it.
So it comes down to a lack of awareness, training, or resources.
It's about not understanding or addressing the risks, which can lead to serious and preventable damage.
Now, on to that possible 11th agent we mentioned, dissociation.
This is a fascinating one, and it's getting more attention in the art world. Dissociation is about separating an object from its context, history, or related information.
So not physical damage, but a loss of information that makes the object less valuable culturally and historically.
Exactly. Imagine an artwork that's lost its documentation, like purchase records, exhibition history, or even who owned it before. This makes it hard to authenticate, trace its journey, or fully understand its meaning.
Like a book without a title or an author. You can read the words, but you're missing part of the story.
And that's why documentation is so important. It's about recording the object's story, where it came from, how it's traveled through time, and its cultural importance.
It's not just about saving the object, but saving its story.
And that's something we all need to be involved in. Museums, archivists, collectors, even regular art lovers.
Because it's our shared responsibility to preserve those stories for the future.
Absolutely. You know, it's really interesting how these agents show us how connected art is to its environment.
How so?
Well, we often think of artwork as just a static object, like it's frozen in time.
Right, like it exists in a bubble.
Exactly. But art is constantly interacting with its surroundings. It's absorbing, reacting to everything around it.
So it's not enough to just create a perfect sealed environment.
Not at all. You have to understand each agent, how they work together, and how even small environmental changes can really affect how well art is preserved over time.
Like a delicate ecosystem where little disruptions can throw everything off balance.
Precisely. That's why preventative conservation is so important.
Anticipating those risks and taking steps to protect the art before damage happens.
Exactly. It's so much easier to prevent damage than to try and fix it later. And sometimes the damage these agents cause can't be reversed.
That brings up a good question for our listeners. What can they do to help protect the art and cultural heritage they come across?
The first thing is to just be aware of these agents. Think about how your actions might be affecting the objects around you.
Being mindful, paying attention to the details.
Right. Are you putting artwork in direct sunlight? Touching it without gloves? Storing it in a damp basement or a super hot attic?
Seemingly small things, but they can make a big difference.
They really can. And don't hesitate to ask questions. If you're at a museum, ask the staff about their conservation efforts. If you're a collector, talk to a conservator about the best way to care for your collection.
The more you know about these agents, the better you can protect the art we all appreciate.
It's our shared responsibility to preserve these objects for future generations.
Of all the agents we've discussed, which one do you think is the toughest for conservators to deal with?
That's a tough one. They all have their challenges. But if I had to pick, I'd say incorrect relative humidity can be one of the trickiest to manage.
Why is that?
Because it's everywhere. You can't always see it or smell it, but it's in the air, affecting pretty much every kind of material, from paintings and sculptures to textiles and documents.
So it's not just about controlling the humidity, but also about managing those ups and downs.
And fluctuations happen, especially in older buildings or areas with extreme weather. That's why it's so important to keep an eye on RH levels and try to minimize those changes.
Are some materials more vulnerable to those humidity swings than others?
Organic materials, those that absorb and release moisture easily, are the most sensitive.
Like wood, paper, textiles, leather?
Exactly. Those materials will expand and contract as the RH levels change. Over time, all that movement can weaken the material, making it more likely to crack, warp, or even fall apart.
And on top of that, humidity swings create the perfect environment for mold.
Exactly. Mold loves damp places, and it can spread quickly and cause permanent damage to organic materials.
It's incredible how something like moisture in the air can have such a big impact on how long artwork lasts.
It is. And it really emphasizes the importance of preventative conservation. By understanding these agents and taking steps to reduce their impact, we can make sure these objects last for generations.
It's really inspiring to think about the dedication of conservators who work so hard to protect these pieces.
It's a very specialized field that takes a deep understanding of art history, material science, and conservation ethics.
And a lot of patience, I imagine.
Absolutely. Conservation treatments can take a lot of time and precision, especially when you're working with delicate or complicated objects.
So far, we've talked about the threats to artwork, but let's end on a positive note. What are some of the most exciting new developments in art conservation that give you hope for the future?
One area that's really growing is non-invasive imaging.
What is that?
It lets conservators look inside an artwork without having to touch it or take samples.
So they can see things like hidden layers of paint, underdrawings, or even past repairs.
Exactly. This information is super valuable for understanding the history of an artwork, authenticating it, and making good decisions about its conservation.
Like having X-ray vision for art.
It really is, and it's helping us to understand and preserve artwork in ways we never could before.
What other advancements are you excited about?
Another area where there's a lot of progress is the development of new conservation materials. These materials are designed to be more stable, reversible, and safe to use with the original materials of the artwork.
So less risk of causing more damage later on.
Exactly. And this is really important because a core principle of art conservation is that any treatment should be reversible. We want to preserve the artwork for the future, but we also want to leave options open for conservators in the years to come.
It's about respecting the artwork while making sure it survives.
That's exactly what makes art conservation so fascinating and challenging. It's about finding that balance between science, art, and ethics.
This has been a really fascinating look into the world of art conservation.
I agree. We've covered so much ground.
We've explored the 10 agents of deterioration, that potential 11th agent of dissociation, and even touched on some of the exciting things happening in the field.
And hopefully, we've helped our listeners better understand the challenges of preserving cultural heritage.
And maybe even inspired some of them to learn more about art conservation and get involved in protecting the art they love.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Because as we've been saying, it's all of our responsibility to protect these treasures for future generations.
You know, when we were talking about that possible 11th agent, dissociation, you got me thinking.
Oh, what about?
Well, with all the work that goes into protecting art from physical harm, are we doing enough to protect the information, the context, the things that give those objects meaning?
That's a great point, and it's definitely a growing concern in the field. As we learn more about how important context is, we realize that saving the object itself is just the first step.
Yeah, it's like having a book with no title or author. You can enjoy the words, but you're missing a big part of the story.
Exactly. That's why documentation is so crucial. It's about recording the history of a piece, its origins, its journey, its cultural significance.
So it's not just about saving the object, it's about saving its story.
Absolutely. And everyone has a part to play in that. Museum curators, archivists, collectors, even just people who love art.
Because we're all responsible for making sure those stories survive for future generations.
Well said. Well, I think it's about time we wrap up our deep dive into art conservation.
This has been a really eye-opening conversation.
It has.
We've gone through the 10 agents of deterioration, explored the idea of dissociation as an 11th agent, and even talk about some of the exciting developments that are changing the field.
It's been great sharing these insights with you and our listeners.
And I hope we've encouraged everyone to think about how we interact with art and how we can all help protect these treasures for the future.
I hope so too, because, like we've been saying, it's our collective responsibility to look after these pieces for generations to come.
Art connects us to our past, enriches our present, and inspires our future.
It does.
And it's up to all of us to ensure those connections remain strong.
Thank you for joining us on this journey.
And until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep appreciating the art and history all around you.